Phytogenic substances, they have a lot of different effects. So it can be from antimicrobial to anti-inflammatory. That's just to name two of those. But it's really like then if you look into the animal, you might only see as an effect, okay, you have increased productivity, you might have better welfare. But I think there's a lot of things happening which you exactly see during stress situations.
Hello, welcome back to the Dairy Podcast Show. My name is Barry Bradford from Michigan State University. Today, I'm happy to welcome to the show Dr. Nicole Reisinger. Dr. Reisinger is a senior scientist with dsm-firmenich, Animal Health and Nutrition in Austria. Thanks for joining us today, Nicole.
Hi, nice to be in your show.
What time of the day is it in Austria right now? Did you stay up late for this?
It's still okay. It's early evening, so that's quite fine. It's already dark because it's winter, but yeah, it's fine.
So tell me a little bit about your background. So you're working, we're going to talk a little bit about some feed additives for dairy cattle, but did you sort of grow up related to ag? Did you grow up in Austria or what's your story?
Actually, I grew up in Austria and I was actually more into horses at first, but I really got into animal and science especially. So I really like to know a bit more in detail all the things which happen from a biological perspective. So I started to study actually biotechnology and then went up for livestock species, looking into the details about starting actually with poultry, looking into the details of histology, how the gut evolves. And then I really started to move more in the direction of ruminants because I was quite interested in the topic of endotoxins, where I also did my PhD about the effects of endotoxins in livestock species. And then I moved more in the direction of ruminants, what are the effects of endotoxins, and especially the topic of biomarkers. And that's also where I'm currently working on biomarkers in ruminants, as well as on actually in vitro technology to also find some alternative approaches to look into animal health. So that's a bit where I ended up also looking into effects of different feed additives on specific biomarkers.
That's nice, fascinating. Tackled a lot of complicated things, but it's interesting to me. Like I don't talk to very many people in that are working kind of in the feed space and livestock that have worked in neurobiology and cognition. So you did your master's in that. Was that sort of within the animal science and livestock research domain, or was that kind of more with a human focus?
No, it was actually also in the livestock species. So I just recently finished that one because I was just curious because we do notice that there is more and more interest in animal welfare. And I think I was just really interested to also get into the science behind that. So we also did a lot of research already looking to welfare-related parameters like ruminating behavior, feeding behavior. And I was just very interested in this gut-brain axis to understand a bit more what is influencing the behavior, how is that somehow connected to each other. So that was the reason actually why I wanted to have some further insights and started to do this additional education. So it was also then, of course, we learned a lot about humans as well, but I then want to use it also now a bit more to understand about ruminants and welfare a bit more in detail.
So you're somebody that likes to learn. That's what I'm getting here. That's impressive. That'd be really neat to have that background as you're studying endotoxin effects too, right? There's all kinds of direct neurobiological effects of those kinds of tools.
Unlike traditional vitamin D3, which requires metabolic conversion in the liver and kidneys before becoming bioavailable, 25-hydroxy-D3 bypasses the first step, allowing for faster absorption and improved efficiency. High D from dsm-firmenich optimizes vitamin D levels to increase milk yield, enhance calcium to phosphorus ratio, and strengthen immunity. Learn more at dsm-firmenich.com/hy-d.
All right, so maybe we should start off with, I know we've had a few other episodes with people from dsm-firmenich on the show, but if you don't mind, give us a little bit of an overview of that company, if you would, so people have some context.
Yeah, so we are a bigger company, so I'm only part of the animal nutrition, and I think we really try to cover a bit the whole story about what do animal needs to are in the right condition to produce, but also related to welfare. So we have on the one hand performance solutions, so feed additives like Phytogenics, for example, but also like vitamins. And at the same time, we are also now focusing a lot on precision services, so also understanding the biology and also helping to understand what is happening on the farm, why there might be some related problems. So this is also what caught quite my attention, ruminants, because it goes back to the biomarkers. So we are also working on setting up services to really monitor and have a look on animals' health and really have the possibility to do a bit more like precision nutrition as a topic. So I think that's really trying to cover a bit, supporting the farmers at different spots. So not only providing solutions, but really also trying to understand what solutions are needed before just offering something. I think you need to understand what is the purpose, what is the state of the cow. So I think it's always important to think about your end customer, and that's the cow. So I think that's what we try to tackle a bit.
That's good. Okay, so providing kind of the technical support and such, and to investigate problems before you offer solutions. That makes sense.
And maybe to add also on, we have quite a big research facilities. So that's also why I actually am very much in favor of working for this company, because we really look into science, and that's what I really like. So we are not only looking into, okay, this product works, that's fine. We really want to understand the mode of action, looking into different, more complicated topics like host microbiome interaction. I think is quite in science a very interesting topic at the moment. So we really want to understand, and we have a lot of different colleagues where we have scientists from different topics. So it's also really nice to collaborate. And of course, also we do a lot of university collaborations. And that's really a very nice environment to really get into the depth of the mode of action of products or into challenges which the customer is actually facing.
Well, today we're going to focus a little bit on phytogenic feed additives. And this is an area I've been excited about for a number of years now, but I definitely find that that's a term that's sort of still not common, right, in the dairy industry. So help us, first of all, understand what that term even means.
Yeah, so I think it's covered quite a broad range. So it's including the basis is actually it's plant-derived compounds, but it can be herbs, spices, essential oils, plant extract. So I think it's quite a complex topic, but it also allows a lot of flexibility. So that's also, I think, the beauty of Phytogenics, that you have also compounds interacting with each other, but it's also, of course, you need to invest more to get the right combinations. And this is also where you really need to look into depth. What are these synergistic effects of those compounds? Because it might be that one substance is not enough. You need to combine them in the right way that you have really the effect you are interested in. And this also gets a bit where we have a lot of experience also tackling the question how to test a lot of substances. So we use also in vitro technology, so working in the lab to test first. And we're trying also to advance those models. So we are also trying always to be better, because it's not that advanced in livestock species, the cell culture work and the in vitro models. So we are also really trying to look in new technologies like organ on a chip or something like that to really tackle and really see, because the phytogenic substances, they have a lot of different effects. So it can be from antimicrobial to anti-inflammatory. That's just to name two of those, but it's really like, then if you look into the animal, you might only see as an effect, okay, you have increased productivity, you might have better welfare, but I think there's a lot of things happening which you exactly see during stress situations. So we worked, for example, quite a long time together with the VetMed University in Vienna with Professor Zebeli on the topic of acidosis, where we tested one of our products, digesterone, which is actually a combination of different compounds. And we really looked into all the details. So how does that really look under stress conditions? What does change? How that might be connected? So I think it's really important to take a closer look into single compounds as well before you just mix them together. But I think then you can really kind of play around a bit. with the different compounds. And I think the nice thing, it's kind of designed by nature, those compounds, because they all have a sense in nature. So it's also quite logical that they will have an impact in animals. And I think it's also what we notice if we smell or taste phytogenics. I think that's already where we get an impression that this can have a very positive effect. But it really needs also sound scientific proof that you know, okay, which compounds do you combine and which effects do you see? And then, of course, test it at the different concentrations. So I think it's a lot of work you need to invest, but I think it really pays off, especially in this long-term project. We could see a lot of beneficial effects from the product.
One thing I've kind of wondered about, but I haven't spent a lot of time on, when you're actually generating commercial products in this space, as you said, a lot of these products are either essential oils or like herbs and spices and stuff. And we know about these compounds because they have strong odors and tastes, right? So they have a lot of aromatic compounds that are volatile. So how does a company go about, generating a mixture of these compounds that are effective, and then making sure that it's actually effective through a distribution chain when it actually arrives on a farm and mixed into a feed?
It's a good question, and it's a lot of work. I think you already touched a few of those points. So it's really like starting, of course, with what information is already available. I think that's always like one of the first things you always do. And we have a lot of phytogenic experts which really work long time on this topic. So they bring in also a lot of knowledge. But then it can be as easy as starting with in vitro testing. So really first having an idea, okay, we want to search for substances having like anti-inflammatory effects, which is always a very important topic, I think, thinking about transition period. Other challenges, I think inflammation is always like a big, also challenging topic because it's not black and white. But we do then try to find out as much as possible in vitro. But then at some point, we really need to tackle if those mixtures are also working in the animal itself. And I think that's also where we need to do really in-depth evaluation. So we try to really see, okay, what is the effect, for example, during acidosis, as I mentioned? And then we really go first into smaller trials where we do take a lot of different samples at different time points. And even for this project I mentioned, we even did take the route and also tested some single compounds to get an idea. So I think it's always like a mixture of what is already available. We also have digesterone for different species. So we already had knowledge for monogastric species, how to adapt it a bit and what would be like the approximate outcome. And then you can kind of adapt the product a bit. And I think it's also quite important about the acceptance of the animals. So it also needs to be from smell and taste. It also needs to fit. So that's also something we even try out first as humans. So what is the smell? That's even a quality check to test the smell of new compounds which are coming in. But I think that's a very essential point. But this is also something which you can use as positive. So phytogenic products, like for example, we also have one product for calves where we really also played around a bit. So we also added like substances which really make them more palatable and also smell good. So they are more like likely to eat more, ingest more. So I think you can really play around a bit. And it's also a bit depending on which subspecies you are interested in, but there is such high amount of flexibility. So you can really tackle what is the issue you want to use. And I think it's also quite good to have like a mixture which helps really the animals throughout the life stages. Because I think especially in dairy, starting from the dry phase, calving, peak of milk production, there are always different challenges. And of course, you don't want to have 10 different products. So you need to think about, okay, which challenges would I like to tackle? And then that it really fits. So because I think nobody would like to mix in 10 different formulations at different time points. So I think it's really getting into these details.
Fascinating. So you talked a little bit about some work that you've done with digesterone in sort of acidosis type scenarios. Are there some other like recent studies that have given insights maybe in different types of challenges?
We mainly worked on on acidosis, but we also had a look a bit on heat stress, because heat stress is always like one of the major challenges I think we are facing, and it's getting even more and more challenging. And I think phytogenics are essential for this kind of challenge. They are having quite a few advantages, because they really can impact the gut permeability. So they can really help to strengthen the gut permeability. And this is, for example, essentially one of the major things we see with heat stress. So that you really have some barrier issues. And I think, therefore, heat stress is definitely something we can target. But what we could also see for acidosis was that there were quite a few positive effects we could see. And it really started it from feed intake, then also even saliva production and buffering the pH was coming from different sides. So we had on the one hand the influence even on the pH of the saliva, but then also on the microbiome, which is very essential. So this is all like giving us an idea. The only thing I think which is always a bit of a pity, of course, all the studies are very rumen-centric, but we also need to learn a bit more about the gut, which is as essential, but it's just that we don't have that easy access to it. But we know that phytogenics also work in the gut quite well. So they help with gut barrier, but they also then help reducing inflammation. And I think inflammation, as already mentioned, is quite a topic in different kinds of challenges. And for example, in calves, we could also see that there is less susceptibility to other diseases, especially when calves are quite easy to catch infections or anything like this. We could also see that they are less susceptible if you give them the right phytogenic feed additive.
Phytogenic is committed to help supply a growing world population with healthy and affordable animal protein while prioritizing animal welfare, the efficient use of natural resources, and food safety. Phytogenic's expertise in low-protein diets and supplemental amino acids help ruminant farmers around the globe to enhance feed efficiency, reduce costs, improve animal health, and lower greenhouse gas and nitrogen emissions. Maximize profitability and herd health with early detection in animal health, reproduction, and feeding. The most advanced bolus technology and professional support from agricultural experts make this possible with SmaxTech, the health management system that future-proofs your dairy operation.
Yeah, and I've seen this in other studies too. Like some of the effects are just, it becomes really hard to nail down exactly how it happened. So like if you're seeing a shift in buffering capacity of saliva, what's the mechanism there? That's tricky, right?
It is tricky. So this is also why we did take the challenge together with the university to have a look in depth. So we could really see that there are several things which were affected. So microbiome was one thing, but then of course also the fermentation is different if you have a different microbiome, if you can stabilize it, have more diversity, which is usually a positive thing. And we also did take a look on metabolites. And this was quite interesting. I think metabolites get more and more attention due to new technologies you can use. And we could see, for example, things like dopamine, which is actually also relating back to the gut-brain axis, that these things were also where we could stabilize. It doesn't always necessarily mean that it's better that it's high or low, but you can just stabilize it over the time. So then you can really see, for example, dopamine has a lot of influence on rumen contraction. And this has, again, a kind of connection with other things. We could see also things like welfare, I already mentioned, where we had like ruminating activity. That's also closely related to pH buffering, saliva production. So I think it all comes together. It's sometimes a bit like the egg or the hen question. So you don't know what's coming first. But we could see from many aspects that there were an effect. And I think especially the ruminating, the time, and that was also something which we could constantly see in the trials, that we have more ruminating activity, also more ruminating when the animals were lying down. So we really could see at several aspects that this resulted also into less inflammation. So we usually tend to look at acute phase response, which is, I think, one of the major things which can give an idea about inflammation. And we could also see there that there was a reduction of the inflammation response.
So when you talk with and maybe this isn't you directly, but I'm curious when there's this big mix of things and some of the focus is on helping animals deal with stressors, right? How do you help, say, a dairy producer think through an investment in a feed additive like this? It may be 10 or 20 or 30 cents per animal per day. And at least in the U.S., the question is going to be, well, how am I going to get that investment back, right?
I think that's always a tricky question. And as a scientist, it's always a bit more challenging because you're focused on all the details. But I think in the end, it's really, you can show it has different benefits. On the one hand, it really has an effect on production levels. So I think that's something which you can easily show and which was also actually scientifically proven. But I think also this welfare topic is getting, at least in Europe, it's getting really a push. So we're looking also into something which is quite obvious, like lying behavior, which is also associated with different diseases. So I think it's really showing also that we have data on disease prevalence, like lameness is always an important topic, which is also then associated with behavior things like lying behavior. But I think it's really important to monitor the animals in the end. I think that's always what we need to do. And I think it's probably easy to do a calculation what you would invest in adding the feed additive versus what you get out on the long term. I think it's just that you need maybe to come up with some numbers, but I think that's easy with the studies we have. So really have long-term studies as well as this more in detail scientific studies. So I think it's a combination of both, but I would definitely say in the end, it has an effect on production levels, or for calves where we do see better rumen development, more feed intake, so they are more healthy. So I think that's something which is probably the most convincing argumentation. And I think we are always happy to discuss with the customer to try out and also see for themselves, because we are quite confident about our product due to the many studies we invest. So I think that's definitely something I think we probably also always offer, just to give it a chance and to see and then calculate actually back what is the benefit. And I think it will easily pay off.
I think you did a good job of kind of talking through some of the complexities of developing products in this space, because there's so many different potential compounds, and then there's so many different doses you can consider, and then all the interactions. It's almost like an infinite puzzle, right? But that, like you said, also gives you a lot of avenues for potential impact. So if you're going to look at it from an optimistic viewpoint, what do you see as maybe the potential impact of phytogenics in the future? Do you see tackling totally different challenges that we're not looking at today, or what do you think will happen?
I think actually it will still tackle the same challenges because they won't completely go away. I think they will just shift. So as already mentioned, I think heat stress is something which is really will become more and more important. We do see that in different countries, that it's always like a combination, of course, of nutrition as well as management. So, we also need to be honest that it's not the feed additive alone, so it can just support, and I think it can prevent the animals more. I think also maybe some disease challenges will become more prevalent as we see some disease viruses spreading more. So I think we can also prepare the animals a bit. But again, I think also this combination with precision services. So really do take data-driven decisions that we know what is the issue, and then we can really also select the right time points. But I think definitely phytogenics are, for many reasons, quite a good choice for the future. Also thinking about staying a bit more into the nature support, thinking about customers probably are interested also to look more into biological support than giving medication. So I think the prevention, that's something which will gain more and more importance. And I also think that the more also the whole dairy industry, I think, is also evolving. So we get more and more information. The farms get more and more monitored. So it's also even easier to really push them at the right direction with phytogenic feed additives. So I think it has quite a lot of potential, but it always needs to be combined with management and I think precision services, like really watching how does the health look of the animals or of the general herd. I think that's something which is essential.
It makes sense. Okay.
It's time for our famous three.
Cow Manager's unique ear sensor measures ear temperature combined with eating, rumination, and activity, resulting in more accurate and earlier alerts. With Cow Manager, you can catch sick cows days before they show clinical signs. Never miss a heat and unlock your herd's full potential. Cow Manager provides 24/7 real-time insights to help improve herd health, fertility, and overall performance. To learn more, contact your Cow Manager specialist at Select Sires or visit cowmanager.com.
All right. Well, the time has come for our three famous questions. So first question I have for you, do you have a favorite dairy-related book or resource?
I would definitely say Journal of Dairy Sciences, where I'm looking most into the scientific studies, coming more from a scientific background. So I think that's something where I always find a good read, new information, new science-related information. So that's definitely probably the one which comes first into my mind.
Okay, as an editor for that journal, that makes me feel good to hear that. Okay. Do you have a favorite book or resource outside of agriculture?
I think two books actually, they stay in my mind for a long time. One is the Celestine Prophecy. So that's more from a personal and more personal development perspective. I think this is the one book which always stayed in my mind. And from scientific, it's The Universe in a Nutshell. I think that's actually from Stephen Hawking, and I think it brought me actually to science. So I first thought studying physics. I'm happily stayed with more biology, but I think this book was really starting a bit my direction into science focus. So I really enjoyed this book, and it also always like to look back to it.
And then the Celestine Prophecy is written by, I'm looking it up.
James Redfield.
James Redfield, is that right? Okay. Yep. And what's the point of that book?
It's more about your mindset and your personal development and how you see the world, I think. So that's a bit more what you do out of this information of the book. So it's more like your mindset, change a bit your mindset and how you prepare yourself for developing a bit further.
Very good. Thanks for sharing those. Okay. Third question then. In your opinion, what sets successful dairy professionals apart from those who are less successful?
I think be open to learn new things. I think that's one of the most important things. Always be open-minded, think a bit outside of the box, be open for other opinions. I think that's really essential. I'm a bit more also direction to focus in the future more on data-driven decisions. But in the end, I think it's also important to keep your end customer, the cow, in mind and stay close to it. Because I know if you are too much insight into data, you sometimes forget about what is at the end of your knowledge or data. So I think that's the two things which are super important and I think which helps to stay in this professional field and do a good job.
Good answer. Yeah, a bit of a balancing act there. I think you're right. Very good. Well, this has been another episode of the Dairy Podcast Show brought to you by Wisenetics, and our guest today has been Dr. Nicole Reisinger. So thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. It's a great conversation.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
So if you haven't subscribed to the Dairy Podcast Show, make sure you hit the button so you hear the next episode, and we'll see you then.